But how was I to expect him to do that for me if I couldn't even do it for myself? Hello, hello, lovelies, and welcome to another episode of Loving Life with Court. I am really looking forward to today's topic because it's not something that I usually talk about, which is your love life. By the title of today's episode, I'm sure you are like, what the fuck are we talking about today, Courtney? Because it makes no sense. But stick with me because no matter where you are in your love journey, if you are as single as a Pringle, living that married life, in a relationship, in a situationship, I can promise you, no matter where you are, you will leave today's episode with a lot of information that will help you continue to manifest an abundance of love and happiness into your life. So without further ado, let's just dive on in. So when you think about manifesting a new love into your life, or even manifesting an existing person in your life to change the relationship that you may share currently, the common response is looking for that person. So imagining what your desired person will be like, how you'll be treated by that person, and really putting expectations on what you're seeking, what that person will bring to your life, as opposed to what you have to offer initially into that relationship. To go a bit deeper, I'll give you an example of kind of what I'm talking about. So when my husband and I met, we were really young. We were crazy partiers. We did a lot of drinking, and definitely we did not anticipate to be in a committed relationship with one another, let alone married 7 years later. And the place we were when we met and started a relationship really determined what the first few years of dating would look like for us. We moved quite quickly. I was essentially living with him before we even made it official. It was my first relationship. Like I said, we were partying a lot. We were drinking a lot. We struggled with having deep conversations with one another. We had difficulties communicating, and oftentimes we could only effectively communicate when there was some kind of substance involved, like weed or alcohol, whatever it was. Now, personally speaking, because I don't want to speak on his behalf, I was not a good partner in the beginning. I did not have much to bring, although I did feel like I was a good spouse in terms of like taking care of him and cooking for him and just loving onto him in the best way I could. I really didn't have a lot to offer in terms of building a strong foundation and a good relationship that was respectful and had boundaries and where we could effectively communicate. And this was obviously a reflection of my childhood. I had never shared a relationship with someone that was just healthy, that had boundaries and respect, where we didn't yell at each other and swear at each other. And going into my first relationship that moved quite quickly and living with someone that maybe I didn't really know that well in the beginning, I had a lot of walls up and a lot of emotional triggers that just really influenced the kind of relationship we shared. What many people do, like I said, is put their expectations, even some people I know have checklists on what this person needs to be and needs to offer. But what often happens is that we neglect to reflect on what do we have to offer. So before we begin, wherever you are along your journey, where I was personally is when I started this journey, I was a few years into a relationship. I loved my now husband so much, and I felt like he was the only one that needed to change. I obviously realized that in order for me to expect him to change, because a lot of our fights were simply just a reflection of my own insecurities and my own lack of boundaries, my own lack of self-respect, and so forth. In order for me to expect him to change, I had to ask myself one important question, which was, would I date me where I am now? And to be quite honest, there was no way I would have gotten into a relationship with the person that I was in that moment. So that obviously started even more love for my now husband, because he was there through really the trenches of my healing journey. But before I could expect him to change, or before I could expect to build a good relationship with him that was just really a dream relationship for me, and what we share now that is filled with respect and love and boundaries and patience and kindness and compassion, I first had to give myself that. And how did I start? Is I wrote down everything that I wanted from him, and I became it. And where I learned this is Dr. Joe Dispenza. I was watching a video of him a very long time ago, and I made my mission to write down everything that he already was, that my husband already was, and everything that I also wanted him to be. So everything that I loved that he already offered and everything I wanted him to be, and I became it myself. So, I felt like he wasn't patient enough with me. I felt like he wasn't nurturing enough with my feelings. And so I became more patient with myself. I nurtured my feelings more than anybody else could. And obviously, this is a journey. Some days I have days where I really need him to just be there and nurture me. But how was I to expect him to do that for me if I couldn't even do it for myself? And really thinking about how am I supposed to teach him how to do that if I don't even know how to do it? And we'll be right back after this quick message. Imagine discovering that the one thing you've been avoiding could actually change everything for the better, if only you'd give it a try. I'm sure you've heard about BetterHelp, and yes, they're sponsoring today's episode, but here's why you might want to think twice before trying it. If you're not into having deep conversations with someone who really gets you, BetterHelp might not be your thing. If feeling truly heard and understood doesn't appeal to you, you probably won't enjoy what BetterHelp has to offer. And if the idea of having a licensed therapist who works around your schedule seems too convenient, then maybe it's not for you. But even if a part of you is curious about what it feels like to experience this kind of support, maybe, just maybe, BetterHelp is worth taking a closer look. It's designed to fit seamlessly into your life with no huge commitments, just a chance to see if it's what you've been missing. So if you're ready to explore what personalized, flexible therapy could do for you, why not give BetterHelp a shot? Visit betterhelp.com/lovelifewithcourt or check the link in the show notes for 10% off your first month. Sometimes the smallest steps can lead to the biggest changes. Why not give it a try? Welcome back. Let's resume today's episode. And how this stems down to manifestation is your thoughts and actions are what you attract. So wanting a relationship when your thoughts and actions are not at their best will attract the reflection of these thoughts and actions in a person. So, and to dive into that a little bit, like I said, I had very little self-worth. I had very little boundaries for myself, let alone for the relationships that I shared. I would push myself. I would abuse substances. I had very little self-worth. No self-love. I didn't even know what that was. I had emotional triggers that I didn't even begin to work through until years later. I'm just starting to work through some of them. And I obviously attracted a man that also had similar things going on. And I was not willing to help him. And he was in a place where he was not emotionally capable to help me. And not to say that I wasn't willing, but I literally did not have the emotional intelligence to support him. So what did I do? Like I said, is once I started realizing that every time I was pointing the finger and saying that it's his fault or he needs to change or he needs to do this, I would recognize, am I doing this for myself? Every time that, we would get in an argument and I would reflect on what I did, I recognized that, holy shit, I was the one that caused that problem. And his reaction was simply a reflection of what my own internalized feelings were, what was going on with that. So we're going to keep this episode short because I feel like it's really jam-packed with a lot of learning opportunities. The best place to start if you are in a relationship or out of a relationship, single like a Pringle, is to first write down everything that you want from someone. If you already have this checklist, great. But first reflect on, are you that? Have you become that? Do you hold on to those qualities? Simple examples, like I said, if you're looking for somebody who is patient with you and compassionate with you and shows you love like no other, well, first, how are you supposed to know what that feels like? or teach someone how to do that for you if you're not able to do that for yourself. So starting with writing down everything you want from that person and then become it, and reflect on the interactions you have, who you are, who you show up as every day, and ask yourself at the end of the day, would you date you? And if the answer is no, continue to work on it. Recognize what's going on. Try your best to keep in mind all those self-love teachings that I've taught you. It's time to be really self-aware of where you're at, what you expect, and who you are today, and who you can become. So it doesn't have anything to do with the person you're with. It has everything to do with the person who you are. That's today's episode. I love you all so very much. I'll leave you with this, a friendly reminder to not only be kind to others, but also to your beautiful, amazing self.